Legend was a club that I went to work at in 1981. It was an incredible club. I mean, the design of it and the sound system and lighting was, you don't see the likes of a club like that these days. I mean, if they open somewhere like Legend now, people would just be knocked off their feet. It was, the best sound system in the country at the time. I hadn't heard anything better. It was the first club that I worked at that had SL1200s, and they had three. They had like mad stuff like a sound suite where it sent the sound right around the speakers in a circular motion, and on the dance floor, there was apparently there was like half a mile of neon, alone, just like over and around the dance floor. There was like a laser system that hit all sorts of mirrors and prisms, and you could white the place out as well, and with strobes and stuff and smoke. It was just a staggering venue. Sadly, it hasn't really been filmed, or there was nothing filmed at the time that I'm aware of, although I was really happy that later on the line that Happy Mondays did the videos to Rope for Luck and WFL. They were both done at Legends, although people presume they're from the Haçienda. It's actually Legend. And I was there between 81 and the end of 83. I mean, I did the Wednesday night, which was the funk night, the specialist black music night, predominantly black crowd, really into the music, playing like the latest imports that were coming out of New York, and it coincided with the electro coming out of the States, which I went for in a big way, and aligned to mixing. I kind of set my own identity in that club, and it became, like the most cutting edge club on the scene, certainly leading the way throughout that period. Every Wednesday I couldn't wait to get into work. It was just the best place, and so many great memories there, and so influential. Right, well, the Haçienda opened in May '82, which was the same month that Legend just went through the roof. I mean, at first, it didn't really have much in common with the scene that I was involved with at all. It was seen as a student alternative kind of indie club. It struggled very, it's well documented how much it struggled to kind of find its feet, and it simply wouldn't survive but for the fact that New Order had a huge success with Blue Monday, and they bankrolled the club. Really, I think I came into their orbit when I did the Tube on Channel 4. I demonstrated mixing live, and that was in early 1983. And I know that people, I mean, like the guys from Certain Ratio were always coming to Legend from the earliest time I was there. But later down the line, people like Tony Wilson coming, and Rob Gretton, Mike Pickering, who was he wasn't a DJ then, he was the booker, the promotions manager for the Haçienda, and they come and check out what was going on there. And I think what happened was that they'd been to New York doing like tours with like live days with New Order and Quando Quango, Mike Pickering's band, Certain Ratio, and they'd seen what was going on there with clubs like Danceteria was the big one for them, but also Paradise Garage, The Loft, Funhouse, these kind of places. And I think they liked the idea of doing something similar within Manchester, taking that vibe into Manchester. And so to find something like Legend right on their doorstep, I think it was maybe an obvious equation to ask me to come across there. So I think it was August of '83, where I took over the Friday night that we did the first main breakdancing competition in the north of England. We had a night with Houdini, who had a big club hit with Magic's Wand. They played live, and also another night with Nutriments, who were a British act, who had like another big kind of electro track called When the Bridge is Falling Down. They did a live appearance, and that was where Broken Glass really kind of came into their own. There was like a challenge with the dancers that Nutriments had brought, and Broken Glass became kind of almost like celebrities within the Haçienda. What was interesting, and I think where my role in the club, in its development, really came into its own, was in terms of bringing like the black crowd in there in the first instances, but giving it more of a credibility with that audience, and that came through Broken Glass, because they were revered at the time within Manchester. They were like one of the very early breakdancing crews in the country, so that kind of helped introduce the music. yeah, you can see the lineage that kind of dates back to Legend and what was going on there, and how that crowd kind of then came across and eventually, you know, started to open things up at the Haçienda to the dance culture. It was a very brave decision, actually, what they tried to do. People like Rob Gretton, you know, I had a lot of respect for, because he understood, like, the music. He was like a you know, he came from a DJing background, and he was an old soul boy, and Matt Pickering was like his friend as well, and I just think they had a vision. And although it didn't work out during my time there, they stuck with that vision, and eventually, you know, we all know what happened later down the line. So it takes, you know, people like that to kind of to push an idea through, and sometimes you've got to wait, you know, for it to ferment. It can, you know, you hope it happens immediately, but sometimes it takes a long time before it actually comes into its own. I stopped DJing at the end of '83. At the time, you know, my clubs were Tuesday night at Wigan Pier, Wednesday night at Legend, Friday night at the Haçienda, and I did the radio mixes as well. So yeah, there was a big gap in between, 20-year gap pretty much, and then in December 2003, I did a comeback night in Manchester at a club called The Attic, and it was a night called Music Is Better. And that came about because I think I was kind of looking around the internet by this point and gone through the forums, and there's a forum called Deep House Page, and I'd met a guy called Danny Webb via that, who it turned out worked at Piccadilly Records in Manchester, and Danny said, you know, we do a night, we'd love to have you DJing there. And I knew that if I was going to kind of come back into it, that Manchester, you know, Manchester's like, I'm from Merseyside, but a lot of people connect me with Manchester, and it's almost like a spiritual home, because things that I do seem to work in Manchester more so than they do in Liverpool, you know, which is my home city. So, you know, I knew it had to be Manchester, and basically what happened was that we booked in for this night, and I'd say that there was only maybe 90 people there, but it was the right 90 people. After I'd done the night, there was a lot of activity on the forums, on different forums online. People had come down and talking about it, and a lot of people were saying, was it recorded, you know, can we hear it? And I hadn't recorded it, I hadn't even thought of recording it. But what I did on the back of that was I kind of recreated, I knew exactly what I played that night, and so I put together a mix that was called Re-Edited Highlights, and we put that together. We did a limited run, and it was sold through Piccadilly, and that, you know, that's kind of became a legendary CD now, you know. I mean, people kind of still talk to me about it all this time on, and again it kind of spread that vibe further from the actual night itself into something else. So yeah, it just was the thing that's made me feel confident as well about what I was doing, because before I'd done the night, I'd kind of said, well, which way am I going to go? You know, am I going to kind of use vinyl? Am I going to use CD? And then I didn't know, because I mean, I kept a lot of my old vinyl, but I hadn't bought vinyl in years, and just bought stuff on CD. And then a third option was available, which was to go the laptop route. And so I took that option, but also brought into it Reebok's B77 reel-to-reel. So I had like kind of, you know, modern technology plus antiquated technology in juxtaposition to each other, and that kind of set the stall for everything, the way that I go about things. You know, the music I play is drawing from the past, but with a contemporary spin on it via either, you know, current re-edits or newer stuff that again draws its influence from back then. And you know, I literally thought that I'll try all this out on this night, I'll go away from it, I'll see what works, see what doesn't work. But it was one of those where it just worked. And you know, that it's still the way that I DJ now. You know, that it was surprising that it just kind of came together in that respect. After so long away, it just felt right again, and reconnecting with a new audience who were a younger crowd, but were very interested in like the music that had gone before.
The gentleman that needs no introduction, Greg Wilson, Old School Mancunia, taking you through. Big shout out to all the crews out there inside UK Underground. taking you through inside Electric Chair.
Well, Electric Chair, I knew about Electric Chair beforehand, and I'd kind of recognised that as the leading night on the scene, not just in Manchester but nationally. I think Electric Chair is one of these nights that now I don't think people give it the full credits. It'll need a separation of time, but give it 10 years and people will talk about the Electric Chair in real hallowed terms, because you know, the amount of nights up and down the country that I've done since that said they got their inspiration from the Electric Chair. And it's just such a great night, you know. Again, you know, what they were doing was like mixing all the different styles together, and I think that they reconnected back to the original spirit that kind of went back to my time. I can remember when I first went in there listening to some of the tracks that were being played, and I knew that Justin come from an indie side. He was in the band called the New Fast Automatic Daffodils, and I was aware of this, but I didn't know much about Luke at the time, and I thought, well, there's a connection back to the black scene here, and I couldn't quite work out what it was, and then I realised what it was that Luke was from Sheffield, and he'd been kind of schooled at a night called Jive Turkey, which Winston and Parrott were the DJs at. Now they were kids who were on the scene who used to come to, you know, like the all dayers that I used to do. No doubt they came to Legend and stuff. So it's all within that side, and he made his connection there, and that made perfect sense to me why that black sensibility was there within the music that was being played at the Electric Chair. It was an incredible night. I mean, they still do one-offs now, but obviously the night was at Music Box, not the original. They started in pubs in the 90s. I mean, it was going for a long time beforehand, but eventually found its home at the Music Box, and a real dedicated crowd who were really into the music and everything. So when I came to play there, you know, it was like a homecoming in a way. You know. And it also, in a sense, it felt for me that I'd arrived as a DJ again, that, you know, I was no longer, it had gone beyond the stage of here's somebody from the past and there's a novelty value aspect to it, to somebody who's current and doing stuff now. And I think that was, you know, I felt that very much with playing at the Electric Chair, and the warmth and the reception of the crowd. It's something I've thought of for a while, like the idea of bringing in a visual aspect into what I'm doing musically, and you know, I've been, you know, trying to move towards that. Just it's a matter of finding the time. But you know, this year I'm going to do a few gigs where I'm going to, you know, like project some images alongside like the music I'm playing and stuff. You know, keep it. It's quite loose at first, and you know, see how it goes, see how we can develop it. And so the first, I mean, Band on the Wall's the perfect place to do that because of the stage and everything, the way the club's set up, and the fact they've got production, they've got projection facilities and stuff. And so yeah, we decided, you know, yeah, let's go for it there, you know, and see what we can come up with, and then, you know, we can kind of develop that idea onwards as Reels of Steel, and see where it takes us really.